Welcome to the Stuff and Things Podcast, your home for all stuff related to your favorite things in entertainment. Now, here are your hosts.
Hello everybody, it is Marvel Monday on the Stuff and Things podcast. It can mean only one thing, we're back talking about Loki Season 2. I am Sam. Joining me today to discuss the latest episode, which was episode 5, the penultimate of the season. It's the Marvel superfan, it's Kaylee.
Hello.
Good morning, are you well?
I'm cold, but I'm okay.
Yes, it is definitely cold now. It's, I record in a room in my house, which is basically best known as the storeroom. I think is the best way of putting it. Basically a dump. It's the room that you keep the door closed if anyone visits. You know, it's that one. And it seems to have only 2 temperature settings in this room. I'm not quite sure why, but during the summer, it is so hot in here, I'm melting whilst I record. And during the winter, I'm so cold. It's like literally it's one extreme to the other.
I'm always cold, so, you know, it's colder than usual.
Yeah. Today, I am just slightly more cold than usual. Stefan's not with us today. He has got work commitments, which meant he couldn't join us, but he is making sure that all things are in place so he's here for the finale. So apologies to all Stefan fans. You're going to have to do without him for this show. I know there's a lot of hearts breaking as I say this. But yeah, it is Loki Season 2, Episode 5. So Kaylee, the title of the episode was...
Science/fiction.
Yes, and I think the slash is important.
It is.
Yes, because it wasn't science fiction. It wasn't science. It's science. It's like science or fiction almost. It's yeah. Now I watched this episode twice. I often do that because I like to watch it and then I do it again to sort of write my notes. Because I find when I used to just try and watch things right now, I used to miss stuff and I wasn't really enjoying it. I was just
you need the nerd watch and the enjoyment watch.
Yes, yeah. So I tend to watch it, absorb it. I watched it twice, and I've got to be honest with you, there's a lot in this again, and Loki's been this the whole way through. What did you think? What were your overall thoughts of the episode? Because I enjoyed it. It was like, woof, that was a lot.
Yeah, it was a lot. I loved it. It was probably my favourite so far, which
excellent. Yeah,
is quite controversial because I've seen very mixed opinions online.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed it. It did. The first time I kind of was, what the hell's going on? And it's like you, I watched it twice.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed it far more the second time when I kind of understood what was going on.
Yeah, I mean, there's still bits to it which I'm just purely guessing. Like I think I understand this, but I mean I don't know. And I've looked around and I've seen other people with similar theories. I'm like, okay, all right, so I'm not alone. but
that's the beauty of this show, this season, isn't it? It's kind of the point, and it's everyone feels the same, I think.
Well, I think everyone's clearly fully aware that episode 6 we see Mephisto. I mean, it's just
absolutely
it's obvious at this point.
Yeah.
It's just like if he doesn't show up, like what are the writers thinking? So the cold open to episode 5, the penultimate of the season, is Loki alone at the TVA. So at the end of the last episode, we have that sort of big explosion of the loom. It was just like a blinding light. And this episode is like him opening his eyes again. And he's sort of still there. He's on his own, though. Nothing else, you know, or stuff going on. So my opening question to you on this is because when I watched that, I thought that everyone had vanished and it was just him left stuck there by himself. Like whatever had happened had made everyone disappear.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that's the case? Or do you think that when he closed his eyes at the end of the one before, he time slipped?
Now, my opinion on this changed. The first time I saw it, my immediate reaction was, oh, he's imagined it.
Yeah.
None of this actually happened. He shut his eyes and he wakes up and everyone's happy and everyone's still there.
Oh, okay, all right.
So I set myself up for misery very quickly.
Oh, no, I like that though. I like that kind of like, oh, this is fine. It's just all a bad dream.
Yeah, it was all the emotions very quickly when as soon as I realised that, oh no, oh God. The second time I watched it, the time slipping, obviously, when you first see the whole episode up until kind of 3/4 of the way through, it's very confusing and made my head spin. But when I watched it the second time, that was the most obvious thing for me.
Yeah.
That must have been what it was. And when we realise why and how he's time slipping, it makes perfect sense. But obviously he's not aware of that at that point, how and why he's doing it. So it's the only explanation for me that makes sense.
The thing that
it's wrong.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, the thing that kind of made me think that it's what it is the loom itself. So when you watch the end of episode 4, the loom is just branched everywhere. Both sides of the loom, it's like going radioactive sort of thing. When he does that time slip, it looks completely different, and sort of in my head is like, well, you know, if the thing's gone bang, then surely that's now, like, all the loom, everything's gone.
Yeah.
But it would appear that it sort of, I'm guessing there's like a reaction to it, and then the TVA code 1229 is being, read out over the whole thing. The TVA's in failsafe mode. Thank you for your service, which I'm not entirely sure where. I don't know where. So I can't make my mind up. Do you think that the TVA went into that mode, and then all of the people part of that protocol was to leave and get back on a timeline, or did something within the TVA literally move everybody? Because nobody but Sylvie could remember the TVA, so it's not like Brad. Brad Walsh went onto the sacred timeline and obviously knew who he was and was just playing a movie star. Whereas the others, it was like they reverted to their lives. Does that make sense? So it's almost like the TVA, the failsafe mode thing. Who's that for? This is the point I'm trying to get at. Like if the loom exploded and everyone there just sort of went back to their timelines, their branch timelines, their lives.
Yeah.
Who's that alert for? Who's the code 1229 for?
So I don't know who it's necessarily. Yeah. Who's given that that prompt? Yeah. But the only thing that I can make sense is the only reason that Loki and Sylvie know about it is because they are not meant to be on that in the TVA. They are outliers, they're not supposed to, like Mobius and or Don, as we should now call him. Katie stroke Frank, they are where they're supposed to be, and they may have done this multiple times. So it's scooped up all of those originals, in air quotes, if you like. Yeah. And it's meant for them.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, it makes sense. I think one of the fun things in this opening cold open is the kind of time slip moment where he walks into the room, sees someone reading a book, and then we see the camera kind of focus. He time slips. Then he walks back into that room, picks up the book, and you realise it was a loop, which was great.
Yeah.
It was a real... And Tom Hiddleston, obviously, he knows the Loki character is him. It's just he's got it nailed. And one of the things he does, which I think you got to credit him as an actor, is he manages to bring to comic book all this sort of superhero kind of franchise a real grounded, a real sort of moment where he knew that was him who just said hello, but when he he's like alone, he wants someone. Hello is just the way he says it back, like he's by himself, And I love that. I thought that was a really sort of smart. And when you get the greater context of that later on in the episode,
Yeah.
it's really good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he is time slipping again. But one of the things that obviously happened the last time he was time slipping is he was within the TVA. He was always within that building, always within that set space. But this time he's not just time slipping in time within the TVA. He is now moving across the branches. And so we start to catch up with his group, if you like, who were all there when the loom exploded. And the first one we see is Casey, aka Frank, who is a prisoner escaping from Alcatraz in 1962, and it comes up branched timeline.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you knew this, but this is again something I found quite interesting. Frank Morris was a real life prisoner who escaped from Alcatraz and went missing. The official records.
Supposedly.
Yes, official records are that they reckon he drowned.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, Frank Morris is so similar to in season one with Loki being the hijacker on the plane. That obviously was like a great mystery in real life. This again is like this. Casey was Frank who's escaped from Alcatraz. I don't know about you, but I kind of find it quite funny that Casey, who's this really unassuming sort of nerdy guy at the TVA, was actually this master criminal who manages to escape from like the most unescapable prison in all of American history.
Yeah, do you know what? I love that. And actually, each of the alternate selves, there's small things when you think back to what you've seen in the previous seasons and episodes.
Yeah.
It's really clever because there are sometimes really unassuming character traits that they all have that kind of, when you see them in the timeline version, just make perfect sense.
Well, the Casey one for me was the fact that in season one he had a drawer full of stuff that he'd basically just acquired, like infinity stones and all sorts. So it was he was a thief basically, and he obviously to him in the TVA he was collecting things, but he was basically half-inching stuff. So that was kind of funny. There was also a funny little callback in this where Frank, aka Casey, says to the other inmates, "We need to hurry because if they catch us, they'll gut us like a fish." You go back to season one when Loki threatens him. He says, "I'll gut you like a fish." And Casey says, "What's a fish?"
That one, and only because I remember him going, "What's a fish?"
Yeah,
and
I know.
Like, it made it quite memorable.
which was brilliant. It's just got to be the best reaction to that threat ever. And Loki's just like, "What?" It's like, "What's a fish?" What? That's not the important part. I'll gut you. It's like, yeah, but I don't know what that means. Is it good? So I did love that. Hunter B-15 is a Dr. Willis in 2012 New York. I don't know about you, but the minute I saw 2012 New York, I was like, ooh, this is going to be interesting if Loki shows up, because currently in that particular moment he's invading the city. But we didn't get that, so...
No, and there's a part of me that was a little bit disappointed, but a much bigger part of me that was quite glad. But I think that is probably, whilst it's 2012, that's a whole year. That's 365 days. So my only assumption on this is that is pre-Loki.
Yeah. I mean, again, and it's a branched timeline, so maybe in that particular branch, Loki doesn't invade New York and have a temper tantrum, as he likes to call it. Dr. Willis, also known as Verity Willis, as confirmed in the end credits. Her medical badge is there with her full name, and that is a character from the Loki comics, which I didn't know. To be honest, I didn't know it. I just it was something that afterwards, and I was reading up on stuff, and I found that out. So I thought, there we go, I'll share that with the world. So she is a doctor, and I loved the interaction with the kid. Like, do you remember how much your arm hurt when you came in here? Yes. So don't climb trees. you're gonna climb trees again, aren't you?
I'm
The
going to
kid's
climb a
like,
tree.
yeah. So I kind of like that. We catch up with Mobius, as you say, or also known as Don, who is a single dad with 2 boys and is a jet ski salesman. Sorry, personal watercraft salesman. It's 2022. Again, a branched timeline. I just, I mean, it was so it's one of those silly things like that. From the minute you meet this character and he's talking about jet skis, you're kind of like, okay, this guy's life on the timeline was clearly to do with this, whatever it was. And I don't know about you, but I actually found the reality a little bit sad. Like this kind of, he clearly, his wife's left him or is gone, or you don't quite get that clarified. I got the impression she'd left.
She'd left,
And
yeah.
he had the 2 there that obviously they used to have, and he's trying to sell one of them, and it's like, oh wow, that feels kind of, yeah, this doesn't feel good. Poor Don. So,
Yeah. And it makes me wonder actually whether he kind of had an inkling somewhere in his subconscious, because he really didn't want to know.
No, and this, I think the 2 boys is the interesting part of it, because he clearly, devoted to them, his kids, and it's the sort of thing that Mobius knew. I think he said to Loki, his bigger fear was he'd find something he really loved, and he'd be sad. So that was quite sort of interesting.
And I'm kind of worried that we're going to get a whole Wanda moment again where the kids disappear. I cannot cope with that. That Wanda moment for me was horrific, and I just feel that we're going to get something very similar, and everyone's going to cry.
Well, no, I'm good, because one of them was trying to burn down the house, so that one can disappear, little shit. And then Ouroboros, aka A.D. Doug, PhD, I should add, is a sci-fi author / physicist in 1994. He doesn't want to be a physicist, which cracked me up. So, I had to get my doctorate so I could make enough money to keep writing. And we meet him putting his own books on the shelf in a bookstore and getting told off for it.
That was hilarious.
That was great.
Whoever came up with that, that was brilliant. I loved that so much, because it's so him, so innocent and just like.
And it kind of feels like there was in amongst the writers' room for Loki, there is someone there who's a struggling writer, or has been at some point, and has written that scene, and everyone's looked at him and they've gone like, "What? I mean, it didn't happen." Yeah, all right. Whatever, dude. We're keeping an eye on you. So AD Doug, so the little thing that I noticed with AD Doug is when we go back to his workspace after that, the workspace, as he walks into it, is identical to OB's workspace at the TVA. The shape of it, the side of the room's sloped. He's even got this thing above the same, and I find that quite interesting, and I shared it to our TikTok, like the comparison between the 2. And what made me laugh was the general comment. Like, to me, I was like, oh, this must mean something. This must mean, like, perhaps, we kind of were wondering if he was the original, like if the TVA was built by him.
Yeah.
And we've been kind of theorizing about that and stuff. And I was like, well, surely this is evidence. Like, he recreated his workspace, but as the TVA. And the general comments were just like, yeah, well, it's probably just the same set, isn't it? It's like, oh, all right.
I don't think they're necessarily so hard up that they have to scrimp and reuse things to that point. It's got to mean something, surely.
I mean, I get where people are coming from, and it was just kind of like, put me back on my ass, or like, oh, what does this mean? Well, it's the same set in it. You can only dress it so many different ways. So I was like, all right. Bloody hell. Oh, talk about ruining it for me.
But I'm on your side, Sam, on that one.
Thanks, Greg. I knew you would be. And so yeah, so that's where everybody is, and Loki. My favorite thing is he's kind of time slipping between all of these people, and it's OB when he sees OB, who's this science fiction author, And he says to him, like, I'm going to say this to you and it's going to sound crazy. And he's like, of course I believe you, which I absolutely loved. But yeah, as a science fiction author, I think he was his best bet. And he also just appeared right in front of him, which helps you believe the person telling you what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, he convinced him pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And raises an eyebrow or two.
So what did you think for Ouroboros in this moment where he's talking to him and he's trying to get across his kind of point of view of there's science and there's fiction. And he's like, oh, based on science, no, that's impossible, but you're doing it, so that's fiction. And at this point I'm watching this and he does all these little things and he explains like the temporal wars with the pens, and Loki's like, oh right, I get it, so if we get everyone back together it'd be a big impact and we'll be able to find it. He's like, no. It's like, ah! I was generally watching this bit like really trying to pay attention so I could follow it, and just basically Loki and me were simpatico with this, of just being like, oh seriously OB, you're hurting my brain.
Yeah, I think at some point you just kind of have to give into it and just accept whatever he's saying, because if you try and make sense of it, it will just make your head spin, and that's the beauty of him.
It was kind of interesting you just said a moment ago, and I've just sort of going to back on it. You said about raised eyebrows, very quickly OB kind of accepted it. Do you think that OB's aware?
I'm in two minds, but I'm kind of leaning towards yes. I almost feel like he's a bit of a red herring, and he's so endearing, and they're making us, fall in love with his innocence.
Oh, okay, yeah. Sorry.
Fall in love with his innocence, and just, oh, isn't he cute? So you kind of almost see past, and you don't think about, actually he's always there at the right time. He's always got the right thing to say. He's always just on the money with everything, and that's strange because the others haven't got a clue. And you can be a science fiction writer and you can be into all of this stuff, but you're still going to have a moment where you go, holy shit, but you don't. He doesn't do that.
No, but I mean, to me it's just like, it's funny because when I saw him on the timeline and he's this struggling author, I think that kind of killed that for me in my mind, of like, oh, he's going to be the big bad or something, because I was kind of like, oh, okay, all of them are on the timelines. But yeah, you're right, he does kind of accept it very, very quickly, and his knowledge is pretty impressive. Like he says about, we need one of these 10-pad thingies you've mentioned, and Loki basically has a TVA guidebook. Now, for me, the fact that when Loki went to get the book, the music really kicked in, like this was a significant moment. It again feels like when Miss Minutes handed the book to Victor Timely to create a loop. This, again, for me, feels like that. This feels like, okay, that didn't work. That loop there didn't work. But this is Loki now handing this to 1994 version of OB, who's a physicist and obviously a very, very smart guy, with this book and the technology. Can he do it? And so there was something that we talked a little bit about in season 1 about the kind of weird retro feel to the TVA, of like, this advanced organization, but it all looks like an 80s office and stuff like that, and weird colorings and things.
Yeah.
And the
brown.
And the brown and the oranges, and the computer systems are all very early 90s, like early 90s printers. And then of course we've got OB, who's coming from 1994. So his work experience would have been 80s offices, and the most advanced computers at that time would have been the early 90s stuff, which is what the TVA is. And so I'm just kind of now in my mind thinking, is Loki handing him that book? And, you heard the big music, like, this is important, everybody, pay attention to this. is almost like they, between them, have now just created the TVA.
Mm.
What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think we are. I think we said it last week.
Yeah.
This the loop. It's just going back, try again,
Yeah.
change one insignificant thing. It's like, don't go back in time and step on a bug because you'll change the entirety of the galaxy. It feels very much like that.
Yeah. So they have this temporal aura plan, which is Obi basically saying we need to gather all the people who were there when this loom exploded and get them back together. So Loki gives him the TVA guidebook of like, okay, you can build a tempad. I'll try and time slip, and he practices a few times. And there's a little bit of a very big nerd moment for me in this. There's comedy where Loki can't do it, and he's trying, and that's kind of funny in itself, the visual of him trying to time slip. But then Obi goes down the science route of like electric shocking him and shouting at him. It's like, okay, it's not flight, so it was kind of funny to me. But one of the things that is very, very nerdy, and most people probably missed, but I spotted it, rewound, zoomed in, is when he walks off to get the shock stick, it's leaning against a hat, which is on the side, and the hat is a New York Yankees hat, which a certain character in Indiana Jones called Short Round wore. And that's him.
I missed that.
Yeah, it's there. I was very, very happy and quite giddy for a few minutes, and then sort of like, that was very good. I was very pleased they put that in for me and for every Indiana Jones fan for sure. Yeah. And also, I love the fact how much he loves that character. If you ever see him interviewing, he's talking about how much he loved playing that character and how much he loves Harrison Ford. It's ridiculous. It did make me laugh. Sorry to go off on a tangent here. He obviously was sort of quiet for a fair few years, and now he's had this massive resurgence in his career. And he was at this big award show, and Harrison Ford was there. And someone said to him, "Oh, Harrison's out there." So he thought, "I'll go say hello." And he's not seen him for like 20 years, and he's walking towards him, and it suddenly dawned on him, it's like, what if he doesn't recognise me? This is going to be really embarrassing for me.
Aww.
And he said, Harrison Ford turns around and looks at him, and he said, and as he looks at me, Harrison doesn't really have a very happy expression on his face ever. It's just, that's him. He said, and he's looked at me, and he's thinking, oh no, he's just going to think I'm some crazy fan, and he points at me, and I'm like, oh no, and he goes, "Short Round?" And he said, and I immediately went, "Yes, Indy!" It's just like he gave me this massive hug and said how proud he was of me. And I was like, oh, yeah, okay. My eyes, it's dusty. It's dusty in here. But yeah, no, I love that. I love it. His impression of Harrison Ford's also very good. So anyway, I love that. That little thing meant a lot to me. I enjoyed that. But Loki does go off gathering. He goes... we only really see him gather Dawn. The others, we just kind of see him rock up and go hello, and then we obviously know that he convinces them to go with him. But the Dawn stuff, like with the kids, the personal watercraft, there's a moment in that as well where Loki reiterates Mobius's line to him about, what the watercraft is. And you again, like these loops, and I'm kind of wondering if that's where Mobius gets it from. Do you know what I mean? It's like,
yeah.
Oh, what came first?
Yeah. And they really, I feel like that was very done for a reason.
Yeah.
The differences between the conversations between all of them in those moments, they really, really hammered home the fact that Mobius is the most important person to him.
Yeah, I agree. He's his friend. And one of the things I loved is he's trying to talk him into it, and Don is lifting up like a wrench to hit him with, thinking he's a nutter. And then a TVA door opens, and OB walks through. It's kind of a jittery door, because obviously he's just made this, and Loki's like, "Wow, you made that fast." Well, actually, it took me 18 months. 18. Well, 17, because I had to move out when my wife left me and I lost my job. It's like, oh, no. Oh, OB. Oh dear. But he's built a tempad, a very, very early crude version, and obviously that helps convince Doug, and they sort of do a little slip with the tempad to like 10 minutes earlier, and he gets to see Loki walk up to him, which obviously then convinces him, okay, you're telling the truth. But one of my favourite bits is Don goes, what was it you were calling me? Mobius. Oh, that's a really cool name.
Cool, yeah.
And I kind of, I'm now curious if they pick their own names. I don't know. Just again, but or is that now self-fulfilling because Loki's calling them these names, so that's the names they now assume? I don't know. It's like I said, there's this kind of time loop thing. It makes you go cross-eyed. So yeah, he gets everyone back there. They're all there. Casey, aka Frank. So this temporal thing, it can take you anywhere, like, you know, to a middle of a field, yeah, to the Grand Canyon, yeah, to a bank vault. It's like, oh wow. Okay, Casey, yeah, someone keep an eye on him. We all hear, and Loki's like, no, there's one other. Now if we're saying that obviously Mobius is very important to him, I think it's safe to say Sylvie is too.
Yeah.
So what was your reaction to him showing up to Sylvie, doing the line, look, this is going to sound, you know, crazy, and her being like, of course I know who you are, Loki. What were your thoughts on that moment?
I thought it was brilliant. I was absolutely waiting for, you know, this big scene, and they were, you know, he was going to have to try and convince her. And when she just turned to him and goes, well, duh, you know, I was a bit taken aback, if I'm honest. It was a bit like, oh.
What did you think to him referring to it as a scene as well? Because he actually says, I had this scene play out differently. Well,
again, second watch and knowing what I know now, there's a little bit of kind of foreshadowing with that line.
Yeah.
You know, he's storytelling and writing and creating this moment, and he's obviously thought about it for the others, and, you know, done it more than once. And I kind of, it was quite cute because he was a bit deflated, actually. You know, all the effort I've put into this, and I don't need it now.
I don't know about you, but I've been there. I've like amped myself up, like ready for an argument or something, and like I've gone in and like, right, and they were like, look, I'm sorry, and I'm like, what? I had like a 10-minute rant prepared. It's like, you're gonna stay there and listen to it anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's very, very deflating when that happens. But just before Loki arrives, Sylvie puts her McDonald's on the back of her truck, and then it vanishes. She sees that. Now, she doesn't really react to it. Now, Loki arrives, and so in my mind, I'm kind of like, oh, well, she's not reacted to it, because she's probably gone, what? Did I put it there? And then Loki arrives, and that obviously takes over the moment. Yeah. Which I don't know about you, but you do stuff like that, don't you? Like, put something down, look back, and you're like, what? Hang on, did I do that? Oh, no, it's over there. So I kind of took it as that. But when they go to the bar, obviously we have this big moment where she gets him to basically admit that he wants everyone back because he misses his friends, which is an important moment. But she also orders 2 bourbons from the bartender who puts them down. And she drinks hers, and she's looking, and you see her directly look at Loki's, and then gets up and leaves. And then when Loki goes to drink, his is vanished. So her McDonald's vanished, and then she has directly looked at that vanishing, but she isn't reacting to it. It's like she's just kind of accepting it. And I don't know whether that's me overthinking it and she's not really realised, or because also when she goes, like, she says this to Loki, and we have this scene between them which is quite powerful, as these two manage to do. He goes back without her, obviously now deep in thought, thinking, you know, am I doing this selfishly, or am I doing this, you know, what am I doing? And she goes off to like a music shop where she obviously likes to go and listen to records. And she puts a record on that the guy recommends. And then when she opens her eyes, this whole place is being ripped apart. she seems pretty calm. It's like she just seems to get up, grabs her tempad, looks around, opens the tempad door, and do you see what I mean? Like, it just didn't feel like she was like, there was no terror there. Which I know she's grown up in disaster zones, running away from them, but it just seemed very like she saw her McDonald's vanish. She watched that drink vanish. It was almost like she knew what was going to happen and was just kind of laid back about it. And the other thing I did notice as well is with her tempad, which was the He Who Remains one, when she opens the door, did you notice all of those strands like pushed away from it?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, so basically all of this like spaghettification, if you like, is going on. And when she opens the tempad door for herself to like walk through it, it pushes everything away. Like you actually see the visual of everything then being pushed away from it. So I thought that was quite interesting.
Yeah, I mean, her reaction to me was less, I know what's coming.
Yeah.
And more, I'm going to ignore this. I don't want to accept what's coming. If I ignore it, it's not going to happen.
So kind of like I want to be in denial about this.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think it's the gravity of what happens in the music shop, in the record shop, that kind of snaps her back to almost think, shit. You know, I can't run away from this. I need to do something. And actually, you know, if she's aware of Loki and everything, you know, the whole scenario, has she done this before? Has she gone back to that moment? Have they had that conversation before? Have they managed, you know, is the outcome different in previous scenarios, ultimately taking her back to that moment? But this time it's different.
Yeah.
And that's why she kind of accepts it and uses the temp pad to go back to Loki.
Yeah. Yeah, and she does, and she goes back just as Loki's kind of telling everyone, look, you know, I'm just going to put you back where I found you, you know, don't worry about it. And they're all like, but you told us, like, everything's going to end. He's like, yeah, it's fine, you know. So everyone's kind of, like, freaking out, like, this guy grabbed us, showed us this, told us that the world's going to end unless we help him, and now he's just like, I'll go home. So he's trying to wrap his head around what Sylvie said, but Sylvie walks through and is like, they can't, because everything's falling apart, everything's, you know, going. They go to use the tempad, and the tempad's missing, and everyone looks at Casey, and he's like, I didn't take it.
Wasn't me.
Yeah. And then the people start going, and I don't know about you, but this felt very much like the dusted moment at the end of Infinity War.
It was a bit more graphic.
Yeah.
I think. But it was the speed in which it happened just makes it a bit more. I mean, I wasn't, you know, as devastated as I was in Infinity War.
I don't know. It kind of triggered like a kind of weird memory thing of like how impactful that ending of that film was. You know, you remember when it came out and everything, you kind of knew that the Thanos thing was going to be in two parts. You kind of knew you had Infinity War and then you had another film called Endgame that was coming, or you didn't know what the title was at the time, but you knew that you had these two parts finale. So you kind of already went into that first film knowing that the end of this one was going to be, you know, things still in jeopardy, but I don't think any of us had any idea what that would mean.
Yeah.
And just, you know, Thanos winning and snapping and all these people that we knew vanishing. And it was just like, wow. And then we were watching this episode of Loki again, and these people that he was, and kind of seeing it through Loki's eyes, how just horrific that must have been, watching those people vanish, when we just learned throughout the whole episode that the whole reason he's doing this is because he wants them, his friends, to be around him.
Yeah.
So that was a lot. One of the things that surprised me in this as well was Sylvie went. And I don't know why that's, because I kind of felt that the reason why these two could remember everything and were okay were they were Lokis. Do you know what I mean? They were kind of set apart from the others. But then she gets spaghettified as well in front of him. And that kind of shocked me. I wasn't expecting that.
No, I kind of was expecting the two of them to kind of be stood there going, what the hell is happening?
Yeah.
But it kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
From what she said earlier, something along the lines of, we're not meant to have a good outcome or something, so it kind of makes sense, and it just puts her in the category of everyone else, these are my people, rather than just it's another me almost.
So Loki's kind of reaching out to her in that moment, and there's all these strands everywhere, and he starts to touch the kind of strands, and we've called it like spaghettification, but in essence these people are breaking down into like strands of time.
Mm-hmm.
And as he starts to touch them and stuff, you start hearing audio and stuff from previous episodes, from different characters, like the past and stuff. And in that moment, he seems to have this realization of like, I can control this. I think I know how to do this. And he kind of closes his eyes, and all of a sudden he's back. He like resets that moment. He's back to Sylvie walking through the door.
Mm-hmm.
And he stands up, and he's like, I can do it. I can control it. And they're all looking at him like, control what, dude?
Yeah. No idea what just happened.
Yeah, cool. Well, what are you talking about? And he's like, I it's not about, the places or anything like that. It's about the people.
The people.
Who. And it's, I took that as it's his love for them, in essence. That's kind of like, that's what he can use to help him drive this. Did you take that the same way, or did you think of it differently?
Yeah, I mine was probably a little bit darker. It wasn't necessarily his love for them, but it was the grief that he felt of losing them.
That was apparent. Love and grief. That kind of goes hand in hand, I guess.
But it was definitely a darker.
Love where your head's at. Yeah, there we go. I'm trying to be light and fluffy, and you're just like, no, Samuel, we will do
grief.
this.
Yeah,
it will be the pain that powers it. He then says, like, and he gives the line, which is, I can rewrite the story. And then he, again, time slips, and you see him appear next to Obi, back in the TVA, in the moment from the episode before where Victor Timely had just gone down the steps to go get into the big suit, just before he got ripped apart. And he stood there, and then the episode ends. By the way, their endings for these episodes, I want to scream at them.
I know, it's so frustrating.
It's like every time this season, the episode ends, I'm like, oh, you bar stewards.
But then when he stood there at the end, in front of the doors, is that episode, or is it? Because I talked myself in and out of this multiple times. Yeah. Was it that moment with Victor Timely, or was it the one from the beginning?
Oh, I don't know. It's a valid. Yeah, we don't know. it could be anything. I just took it as that because that's the most recent thing, and I thought, oh, he's gone back to that point.
So if it's that one where it's Victor Timely going in, it's the, again, we spoke about this last week, the whole scenario of let's try again, put somebody else in, who's going to be strong, and it's the Iron Man click moment again, who's going to be able to put the glove on, who's going to be able to not get turned to spaghetti.
Yeah, I agree. No. By the way, you just said something to me and it's triggered. I know this is off topic and apologies, but I need to say this to you because someone said it to me the other day, and now I can't get it out of my head because you're a Marvel fan. Super fan, in fact. So, Iron Man click moment. We know that when you click, you sort of have a moment where the Soul Stone takes you to the Soul Plane.
Yeah.
We saw with Thanos, he saw young Gamora.
Yeah.
We know from a cutscene that when Iron Man did it, he saw Morgan grown up.
Mm-hmm.
Someone's asked the question to the directors, the Russo brothers, who did the Hulk see? Who did he see? Because he clicked. Did he go to the Soul Plane?
Ooh.
And their answer was horrific.
Oh God. What was their response?
The Hulk, in a original concept, which was then abandoned, they didn't do, saw Natasha and was separate. So it was Bruce, the Hulk as a completely separate creature, and Natasha talking. The three of them.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm glad that never went anywhere.
I
didn't need to know it.
Oh, no.
Yeah, yeah, and apparently, yeah, their concept with it was going to be that the Hulk was like, I've I'm dead too because you've merged us. I'm not here anymore. And yeah, I was like, nope, didn't need that. Nope, no, thank you. Moving on. But yeah, it's funny. I'd never even thought of that. I'd never once thought like, oh, I wonder if the Hulk saw. And now I know. I'm glad. I wish I'd never asked the question.
Oh, my heart's broken a little bit.
Yeah. You're welcome, everybody. Happy Monday. But yeah. So I mean, that is. I mean, yeah. That's the episode. I mean, it's just. Again, like I said, it was a great episode. There was just so much in it, and we're going into episode 6, the final episode next week. And we'll be here talking about it for Marvel Monday again next week. But I genuinely, and I like this, and I've said this about a few of the MCU shows. I like the fact I'm going into the final episode, and I genuinely don't know what's going to happen. There are so many rumors about different things and the ways it's going to go. One of the things I read yesterday is obviously because of the writer strikes and everything like that, there's been no confirmations on new series being commissioned or anything like that. And one of the things that people are obviously curious about is at the end of season 1, and all of us thought it was one and done because of the other shows had been, we got Loki will return in season 2. And we were all over the moon because we enjoyed it and like, oh, that's brilliant, we're getting more. So everyone's just kind of like, will there be a season 3? Or the original thing appeared to be that this is going to link heavily into the Kang dynasty, and also the film that a lot of people are saying it links quite heavily to is Deadpool 3. Because Mobius and a few other characters are cast in that, it's true, they are going to appear. So people are kind of like, well, is the end of this literally going to take us in to one of those, like a kind of at the end of Ant-Man you saw the council of all the Kangs? Is the end of Loki going to give us something similar to that to kind of set that next part up? We know that Jonathan Majors is slated to be in the final episode, so Victor Timely and or others perhaps. I mean, I don't know. And it's one of those things where I could have a lot of fun with this. Like, I could run through all the different theories that I love the idea of, different cameo ideas. But the thing I've kind of found with Marvel is when people run away with that, they then get disappointed when it's not that. and it's kind of like, I've kind of done that I did that to myself with WandaVision. And it was only then kind of when I shook that off and I realised, actually, no, I loved that ending. That ending was brilliant. It didn't need all the other stuff I had in my head. I then kind of, although I enjoy doing the theories and, a podcast and stuff like that, and I now don't allow myself to then get too carried away where I'm gutted if it doesn't happen. I think the biggest thing that happened to me was the film, which one was it? Doctor Strange 2, I think, where basically there were thousands of rumours of different characters and different cameos of all these different things. And then when it came to it, there were some, but like all the ones you'd kind of like, oh, that's going to be so good, that's going to be so funny. They weren't there, and you were kind of like, that's dumb. So I'm not walking into that trap ever again, really. But
I think we've all learned our lesson with that, and I mean, I very rarely even watch trailers for anything now.
No, you said.
Because I just set myself up for.
So I will put 2 questions to you then, okay? If you were writing this, how would you want to end episode 6? How would you like to end this year? Would you like to end it with a conclusive, Loki is happy, his friends are happy, end of the series? Would you like to leave it open for a season 3? How would you like to end this?
That's a good question. Now, I would quite like to have it all wrapped up neatly in a bow.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, I want more Loki. Not even necessarily as a series,
Yeah.
Because there's so many others coming, and I know that, you know, actually you could tell a really good story. What I would really like is a Loki movie.
Yeah.
Because and I again mentioned this the other day, you know, he's not my Loki anymore.
Yeah.
You know, he's a completely different character. He's been through this whole arc. He's now becoming a more modern version of Loki that we see in the books.
Yeah.
And I want to see that. But I'm also upset that I don't have naughty Loki anymore. So
well, there's someone
I'm really torn.
Again, online, I quite like this concept, and that was that there is a contract for Chris Hemsworth to do another Thor movie, and someone was saying make that a brothers film. So actually call the film Loki and Thor, and have this version of Loki have to help Thor so he's reunited again, and Thor struggle with him being like not being that mischievous kind of, so Thor almost becomes that, like, you know, the kind of like their brotherly dynamic. He one of them has to be the pain in the ass. And Thor kind of struggles with it. And I kind of thought you could have a lot of fun with that and actually tell quite a good story, but I don't know. I think they're setting it up that Loki will play a major role in the bigger picture. So the next question then, if, and this is, please, everyone listening, this is just for fun. If you could have, like, so it kind of ends with sort of a neat little bow, but then we get an after credit where it ties into something else. Who would you like to cameo as that tie-in in an ideal, funny, perfect, or like perfect for you? What would you most mark out about? Like, that's brilliant. Who appearing would do that for you?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, Chris Hemsworth, you know, having the two of them back together would be great. Would be amazing, but they could do so much more. I mean, I would enjoy something really, really random, like the end of the Avengers when they're all sat in the diner, and instead of it being Thor, it being Loki, you know, a complete time flip, and then completely swapping places, you know, something like that. Or I don't know, like the goat or something, you know, something really, really random.
Screaming, okay, that would be random.
Would, you know, or if we're going to go for like the dream, you know, having Darcy, I love Darcy, or you know, even his dad. Could
you just imagine, right? Loki's now the head of the TVA, okay? He is a master of all he surveys, and he's set himself up in this office, and he gets a card come through, and he opens a card, and it says, "Congratulations on your new position, brother, Thor. I've left you a gift." And he walks out, and it's those two screaming goats. And you just see his look, like almost like a look to the camera. I mean, that'd be hilarious, but random, but hilarious. If I was going to pick someone that I think the most people would absolutely flip out about, so I want you to imagine that the series has ended. Loki's now the head of the TVA. The TVA's working for good, trying to keep the Kangs away, if you like. That's how he's doing it. He's trying to keep the natural flow of things, and Sylvie's there. Everyone's kind of happy and everything. And you hear in the background, like Mobius or someone says, "Oh, we got this guy wrecking timelines, so we're going to go and grab him." And basically, the end credit is them dragging Deadpool through one of the doors, and you get an interaction between those two, and that's how it ends.
Yeah, I mean, that would be the dream. I can't wait for Deadpool. I really can't.
Yeah, but, I mean, the director of it, Sean Levy, was doing an interview the other day, and he was talking about, obviously, like, there's a lot of stuff I can say and a lot of stuff I can't. He said, and we put the image out there of Hugh in the comic accurate suit just because we wanted to see how people would react. He said, and the reaction was insane. It's like so. He said, yeah. So that was a lot of fun for us.
Yeah, I mean, it could even be, you know, everyone wants, you know, Steph in particular, you know, to get the X-Men to show up, you know, something like that to bring it back. Or at the end of Doctor Strange, when Clea takes Doctor Strange and she takes him and they plonk in front of his desk.
Yeah, that would be
you know,
hilarious.
and that's that. You know, it's oh, yeah, I don't know. I'd never thought about that, and now it's what I'm going to be thinking about for the rest of the day. So thanks for
Excellent.
that.
You are welcome, and big welcome to everyone else as well.
I'm going to write them all down, and I'm going to post them on Discord, and then in 2 years' time, we'll come back and go, see, that was the right one.
Maybe some of them, maybe one, maybe we'll get one right. But yeah, massive thank you to everybody for listening. As always, it's a real pleasure going through these shows with you, and I love when we get the messages in with all the theories. So please do that this week. Let us know how you think this is going to end. If you're one of the select few on our Discord, then obviously jump on the chat there and let us know. If you want to chat to us directly on Discord, you can find the link on the podcast description. Just join us. It's free. It's just like a little chat room, and we talk about all the different shows we podcast about. You can also get in touch via email, sam@stuffandthangspodcast.com. If you send it through to there and it's for Kaylee or for Stefan, I'll pass that on. Don't send anything weird and wonderful, please. Obviously, you can message via the podcast shows as per normal. I know a lot of people like to do that. So do that. Let us know your theories in the end. If there's any that absolutely nails it, I will read them out next week. But until then, Kaylee, you want to say goodbye to all the lovely people?
Goodbye, lovely people.
We'll be back for next Marvel Monday.
I want to save the TVA.
Why?
I want the TVA back.
And?
I want my friends back. I want my friends back. I don't want to be alone.
Thank you for listening to the Stuff and Things podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. You can find us on Facebook or online. Simply search the Stuff and Things podcast to join in our conversation every week.